Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku Was Insulted and Becomes Vigilante Killer movie. Before we start, please go support President Thanos for writing that awesome fanfic. As being quirkless became more and more rare, the discrimination also went up. So what would happen when a not-so-friendly prank on a poor quirkless boy goes awry? Nothing good, that's for sure. A new, very dangerous vigilante arises from the depths. But can one attention-seeking hero right the wrong? Can she fix a broken boy, or will she be fighting an uphill battle? Only time will give those answers. One for All is wielded by Mei Hatsume. Chapter 1. Takayama, a pro-hero known as Empty Lady, this was her third late-night patrol in a row. She was standing on top of a building, bored out of her mind and talking on her comms. Kamui, anything on your end? Kamui. Other than a purse snatcher? Nothing. It's very peaceful out, nice and quiet. While she wasn't known for her intelligence, you wasn't stupid. Yeah, too quiet. Kinda like there's a bigger predator out tonight. Kamui. You're being paranoid. Just enjoy the small break, God already knows you've begged for it. She turned off her comm in annoyance, and continued to scan the street she was standing above. Suddenly she heard a woman scream in a nearby alley. She ran over to the edge that faced it and looked down to see a rather skinny person. They were wearing a white but very blood-stained hoodie. She heard what sounded like the voice of a boy come from the hooded figure, though it was hoarse like his throat was damaged. He was holding a knife. Oh, there's no need to scream. I heard about what you've done, all those men you've scammed and hurt. I believe you deserve a rest, so why don't you just go to sleep? Before he could strike her, you jumped down and grabbed his arm. Let her go. He turned around so she could see the gruesome sight. He was merely a boy, not even in high school she could bet. His cheeks had large scars in the shape of a smile, his eyelids were gone, and his skin was white, not a white from a mutation quirk, but like it was bleached and burned. Oh, a hero. You're welcome to try to stop me, but I will kill you if you do. Leave now. I don't like killing heroes when I can help it. She shook her head and he ripped his arm from her grasp. I won't let you hurt anyone else. Not someone with a perfectly good life ahead of them. The boy then started laughing. He looked up as he did so, which caused his hood to fall. She could now get a good look at his hair, which appeared to be black at first, but she could see hints of dark green, suggesting whatever burned him charred parts of his hair too. Oh, I apologize, you weren't joking. You see, this woman here is Tamayo Furoshi, also known as Mizutafu's deadly jaguar. She exploits men to give her money, then leaves them for dead once she's taken it all. Now go. He turned back to face the woman. Miss, is that true? The boy kicked over the woman's purse. See for yourself. You bent down slowly and picked it up. They went through its contents, finding the woman's ID, large amounts of cash, and several cards that weren't hers. Furoshi. Wait, I am sorry, I'll never do it again. The blood-stained boy slashed her face, leaving a scar similar to his. Wait, you're that new vigilante, the Smiler, right? He turned around. If that's what they call me, then yes, and you're Empty Lady. I should kill you here and now, as you're a hero for fame, your interviews tell it all. But you stepped in here with no personal gain, so I'll let you live. Let her go. There's enough evidence here to get her sentenced, I can promise you that. He looked between you and Furoshi before putting his knife in his hoodie pocket. Very well. He started walking away but stopped before he left. Oh, and don't follow me, I'll know. Have a nice night, Miss Takayama. He walked off, leaving a now terrified you. While yes, pros' names were public, no one ever used them, even when they were off duty. This kid was different. The way he said her name was personal, as if he knew her more than she thought. You entered her apartment at 5 in the morning. She was dead tired after the night she had. She had to come up with a story that didn't involve letting a known vigilante, who was bordering on villain, go. She walked into her kitchen to get something to eat before passing put on her bed when she heard a noise that made her whip around. Someone there? She stayed like that for a minute until an empty can of soup rolled into the kitchen. She walked over to inspect it, but the light flickered before she could bend down. When it came back on, there was a knife to her neck. "Long time no see, Miss Takayama." She froze at the voice, which made him let out a raspy chuckle. "No need to be scared. I'm only here to talk." He removed the knife from her throat and set it down on the table next to them. She finally turned around to face him. "See? Not armed." She backed away from him as dietance was the only thing that made her feel safe. "Now I want to ask you a single question. Your answer completely controls how long my little visit will be. You, A and W, what is it?" The boy sat down on a chair. "What is your opinion on the Quirkless?" He looked at him confused. "You, they're people, nothing special, and should be treated like everyone else. What kind of answer were you expecting?" He gave another one of his raspy chuckles. "Not that kind. Not from you anyway. You, now that we're on the topic, what's your quirk anyway?" Her previous fear had now been replaced with curiosity. "That's just it. I am quirkless. Why do you think I look like this? I was hideous, but I made myself beautiful once again." His unblinking eyes searched hers for a look of disgust, but instead found one of pity, then one of recognition. "You, those words. They were from a murder case last year. You're Izuku Midoriya, aren't you?" His eyes widened. "Izuku. Smarter than you look." He then stood up and walked towards the door. "Izuku. Good luck, and have a good rest. You'll need it if you want to keep me in check, Miss Takayama." He then left and closed that door, leaving you to herself for the rest of the day. Chapter 2. It had been a week since Izuku invaded Yu's apartment, and he had been busy. There had been an increase in victims being found. Yu was able to stop a few, each time getting a raspy chuckle as Izuku walked away. She started investigating him when she could. Now she was standing at a door, waiting for her knock to be answered. After a minute, a blonde woman with spiky hair answered. "Hello? Oh, empty lady, to what do I owe this visit?" "You. Hello, Mrs. Bakugo. This is about the Vigilante the Smiler. I believe he's connected to you and your family." Mitsuki. "Oh, okay. Come on in, we'll answer what we can." She stepped aside to let you inside, then Mitsuki closed the door when she was. Then she yelled to her son. Mitsuki, yelling. "Katsuki, get down here, a hero needs to talk to you." Katsuki, yelling. "I'm coming, hag." You then heard thumping as the boy left his room. Mitsuki led her to the couch and let her sit down. She then sat across from her as Katsuki came down and sat next to his mother. Katsuki. "What is it?" You took off the bag she was wearing and pulled out 3 folders before placing them on the table. "You. I know you both know of the Smiler. I also know he's connected to you too." Mitsuki. "How so?" "You. I'll get to that, but first we'll start at the beginning. I know this may be a touchy subject, but it's also about Izuku Midoriya." The two flinched at the mention of his name. You then opened the first folder. It was the police report about how Izuku's skin became white and his voice raspy. "You. Back a couple years ago, Izuku Midoriya was drenched in a mixture of bleach and your sweat." She looked at Katsuki, who looked away in shame. Katsuki. "I know the rest. I ignited it and he burned. His skin was forever damaged. What does this have to do with anything?" "You. You'll see." She opened the next folder, the report of the disappearance and suspected murder of Inko and Izuku Midoriya. "You. Just 2 months after both he and his mother disappeared, both presumed dead. Blood covered their apartment. Now a week before this it was discovered that Izuku had carved a smile into his face, presumably to try and mimic All Might and be a hero." Mitsuki. "Yes, I couldn't handle seeing him like that." You then opened the third folder, one made of reports and her own discoveries on the Smiler. "You. This brings me to the Smiler and his description. A medium-height young man with pale white skin. His voice is always raspy and hoarse, as if his throat has been damaged from fire and smoke. His hair appears black at a glance, but there are hints of green underneath layers of char. The last known detail is of the smile carved into his cheeks. She stopped and looked at the two. Their faces were like an open book. Shock, disbelief, sadness, and guilt, all wrapped into one facial expression. Mitsuki. You don't think Izuku's the smiler, do you? Katsuki. That would be ridiculous. You. He is. Mitsuki. How do you know? Then the lights flickered and a knife appeared at Katsuki's throat. A familiar hoarse voice was heard. Izuku. Because I told her, Auntie. You. Hey, put the knife down. Izuku looked at you, then at Katsuki, and moved the knife away from his throat, but still keeping it near the boy. Mitsuki then looked at him in a mix of horror and joy. Mitsuki. I, Izuku? Izuku. The one and only. You. How did you know I was here? Izuku. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you digging up old police reports about me, Ms. Takayama? He chuckled and put the knife back into his pocket. Izuku. Though I am surprised to hear Mom's body wasn't found. Mitsuki. Why is that? Izuku looked at her like she was dumb. Izuku. Whose blood did you think that was? And I left her in the living room too. Katsuki. Why you killed her, Deku? Izuku. Well, considering she must have walked away, apparently not. I will say I'm glad though. I was in a very dark place then. Katsuki scoffed. Katsuki. As opposed to now? Izuku nodded. Izuku. I'm happy with myself now. After all those years of constant bullying, I've finally found something I'm good at. Oh, that reminds me, how's Yue Kawa-chaken? The drew out the nickname as if to taunt the ash blonde he was standing behind. Izuku. Any friends? Any victims? Katsuki shot up and turned to face Izuku before shaking his head wildly. Katsuki. No, not since I couldn't bear to do any of that again. Katsuki quickly bowed on his knees. Katsuki. I know it was bucked up, but I'm sorry. Izuku. TSK. Oh, Katsuki. He walked around the couch and crouched down in front of the boy, using the tip of the knife to move Katsuki's chin up to look at him. Katsuki looked into Izuku's unblinking toxic green eyes that held the most malice and hatred he had ever seen, and yet a wicked sense of joy was also seen. Izuku. I will never forgive you. I will never forget what you did. The only reason you are alive is because I wish to see you grow. The moment I see you take a step back, your neck will open. You got that? Katsuki nodded before backing up slowly. After he was a few feet away, he got up and ran back to his room. Izuku then stood and turned towards Mitsuki, who started crying. Mitsuki. I'm so sorry, Izuku. Sob. I should have done better. I should have noticed. Izuku. Do not cry, Auntie. It wasn't your fault, it was his. I don't blame you. I just hope you don't hate me for killing Mom, or not considering earlier. Mitsuki looked at him in surprise before leaping over and hugging him. She then felt something warm hit her cheek. When she backed away from the hug, she swiped at it, and then looked at her hand, seeing blood. She then looked at him, and saw it was leaking from his smile. Izuku. It happens sometimes, don't worry. Now I'll take my leave. He looked at you. Izuku. But before that, I have a request for you. You. What? Izuku. Find my mother. The lights then flickered once more and he disappeared, leaving only the two blonde women in the living room. Chapter 3. Yu was standing on a familiar rooftop. It had been a month since she and Izuku visited the Bakugos, and he gave her the request of finding his mother. She was waiting for him to show up as she had found some clues, but while she was waiting she started to talk to herself. You. Why am I even doing this? He's crazy, a murderer for God's sake. A slight breeze blew by and she sighed. You. Why aren't I reporting him? Why don't I know? She smacked her own forehead a couple times. You. Come on, you think is it the overwhelming feeling of dread that follows him? No, you get that feeling whenever you put on this damn suit. What is it then? Then a pair of footsteps could be heard from behind her. You. Nice of you to show up. She turned around to see Izuku in his usual white hoodie and black jeans. Izuku. Sorry, Mississippi Takayama, got a little caught up. You. With who? You're not covered in any new blood. Izuku. That doesn't matter. You have anything? She nodded and tossed him a folder she had been holding. You. People have been reporting seeing a pale, black-haired woman in her late 30s in areas you frequent. Though it appears she's either wearing a mask, or her face simply doesn't show emotion anymore. Izuku nodded while looking through the folder. She could swear she saw a small smirk creep onto his face. Izuku. Thank you? You. But I'd be cautious. Izuku looked at her confused. Izuku. Why? You. She's keeping an eye on you. It's more than likely she sees us now. I don't know why. It could be her still trying to care for and protect you, or she's studying you so she can get you back for hurting her. That's also why I have a request for you. Izuku. And what's that? You. Be my bodyguard. This made the boy chuckle. Izuku. You can't be serious. You. Oh, I am. If you can't even tell when she's watching you, I damn well can't tell when she's watching me. And considering she definitely already knows I've been digging into her, I'm in danger. I'll help as much as I can, but I need protection to do it. The boy brought his hand to his chin for a moment to think before speaking again. Izuku. Alright, but it's not just you I have to protect. And Mitsuki and Katsuki will also be in her sights if she's violent. I won't let her take the pleasure of tormenting Katsuki from me. Meet me at their house in 5 hours, we'll talk more then. He then walked away and jumped off the roof, though it was clear he'd be uninjured by the fall. Yu was about to leave when something caught her eye. In the window of a nearby building stood a woman. She had black hair, pale white skin, and an emotionless expression. The woman waved and walked backwards, away from the window. Yu sighed. You. Great. Just great. Look at yourself, you, needing to be protected by an insane vigilante from his maybe equally crazy mom. Ugh, and it's only Monday. She pinched the bridge of her nose in annoyance before walking away. Mitsuki. What? You. Huh? Katsuki, no wa. A knife was put to his chin. Izuku. No opinions from you. He turned to face the other two, once more speaking in his usual rough and hoarse voice. Izuku. You two heard me. Since we have no idea how dangerous Mom is, Mississippi Takayama will be temporarily living here. Masaru. But. Huh? The man had recently returned from a business trip and was informed of Izuku's current state soon after his first visit to the Bakugo house. Izuku groaned. You. No, he has a point. Considering even he can't sense her, even while she's only across the street, it would only make sense if we stayed together. Izuku. What? You. Right, you didn't see her. After you left, I looked across the street and saw her. She waved at me, then walked away. It was weird, friendly, light-hearted, yet still threatening and full of malice, though it didn't seem like it was meant to. Mitsuki. Very weird. You. Either way, it would be safest if I stayed here, not only because Midoriya would be able to keep an eye on all of us, but I can get other heroes here quickly if I need to. It was then she realized Izuku had left, presumably to hunt for more victims. Ordinarily she would go after him, but the rise of gang activity meant he would most likely just kill unimportant thugs, plus she was lucky whenever she was able to find him. Giving up, she went upstairs to the room the Bakugos were letting her use, the woman peeking inside from a gap in the curtains going unnoticed. Chapter 4. A bus was driving down the street. In the bus was a class of students, Class 1A. Bakugo was sitting at the very back of the bus, head leaning on the window, watching the buildings going by. Kaminari. Hey, Bakugo, something wrong? You're unusually calm. His eyes hardened, and his temper flared. Bit before he could open his mouth, he noticed something. It was gone in an instant, but deep in an alley, he saw a man, in a white hoodie and a bloody smile. He grit his teeth, knowing Izuku was watching. Bakugo. It's nothing, Dunce face. Just worry about yourself. Kirishima. He's right, man, you're awfully quiet. Bakugo, yelling. I said it's nothing. In truth, Bakugo was freaking out. He now lived in fear that Izuku would just kill him if he got bored, which even his mother thought would happen. Now add on top of that Inko was still alive, was only seen when she wanted to be, and more than likely just as crazy as Izuku, and now he had to fear two pale-faced Midoriyas, and one couldn't even sense the other. After a few more minutes the bus stopped outside its destination. Aizawa. We're here, get off. The students got up, exited the bus to see a hero standing in front of a large building. Hello, I am 13. And welcome to the USJ. Izuku watched as the bus carrying 1A went by, a small smirk accompanying his carved smile. That was until he felt someone move behind him, and he knew who it was without turning around. Izuku. Mom? He turned to see the pale face of Inko peering around the corner. She beckoned him over with a finger, and then disappeared behind the corner. Izuku, now intrigued, followed. After a few more turns she stopped, and they both faced each other. Burnt green hair being pushed by a breeze that found its way into the alley. Izuku. What do you want? She raised her hand until it was horizontal, a finger pointing at him. Inko. You. Don't go. Izuku looked confused for a second before it dawned on him. He then chuckled and looked her in the eyes. Izuku. No. Inko. No. Izuku. Whether you like it or not, I won't let the League of Dumbasses get away with this attack. Inko. But you'll get hurt. Her voice, just as hoarse as his, carried the sound of care, but Izuku knew she wouldn't let him leave. He slowly reached into his pocket. Izuku. I don't want to do this, Mom. Inko reached into her sleeve. Inko. Neither do I, Izuku. They rushed at each other. The only sound in the alley was the sound of metal on metal as their knives clashed. Then they passed each other, the only contact being their knives. After stopping, they turned back around. Izuku. Let me go. They will die if I don't go. Inko. Always the hero. Why can't you be the bystander for once? She suddenly used her quirk, attraction of small objects, and took Izuku's knife, gripping it in her other hand. Izuku. Not after being one my whole life. He noticed a frown emerge on her face. Then he charged at her, now with no weapons. She clearly wasn't expecting him to fight with no weapons, so she couldn't retaliate. He sent a punch into her stomach, making her drop both blades. Before he could knock her out, however, she kicked up off the ground with agility she hadn't had before. Izuku. You've been training. Inko. Have to keep up with you. She then smirked, turned around, and started walking away. Inko. Good luck, dear, you'll need it. She then disappeared once more, this time not letting him follow. Izuku. Damn it. Ugh, I'd better go. He then turned and went the opposite direction, towards the USJ. Things were not okay, not by a long shot. 13 was down, having been injured by her own quirk. Aizawa was exhausted from fighting a small army on his own, and most of the students were split up. Aizawa blinked, causing his quirk to deactivate, and the quirks of many villains to reactivate. He didn't realize it, but a villain with a gun quirk was right behind him. Mysteriously, the lights flickered a little, and then a gunshot was heard, but the bullet never hit its target. Well. The ever-mysterious Eraserhead fighting like this? It doesn't suit you. Aizawa didn't recognize the hoarse voice, but he did recognize the carved smile and pale skin of the man behind him when he turned around. Izuku. Don't you worry, I'm not here to harm. Well, you are the class anyway. He then swung his knife out, and effectively slit the throat of the gun villain. Izuku. One down, many more to go. Before Aizawa could stop him, he walked forward. This walk wasn't due to exhaustion or overconfidence. This walk was one of an experienced hunter, one that knew he would come out on top. A villain charged, but in the blink of an eye he was on the ground, gurgling on his own blood. One came in from the back, but didn't see the roundhouse kick that sent her back. She did, however, see the moment a knife was sent through her chest and into her heart. Izuku was having the time of his life. So many thugs and criminals, all in the same place, all targets for him to kill. There was one, however, that he knew he stood no chance against. It wasn't a thug, it was a beast. It stood near the center next to blue-haired man he knew as Shigaraki. Back before you had given him the information on his mother, Izuku was sitting in a bar, with a blue-haired man across from him at the table. Shigaraki. What do you mean no? Izuku. Exactly that. No. I'm a vigilante dipshit, I kill people like you. Now leave me alone. What was that beast, and why did Izuku feel like it could kill him in an instant? Chapter 5. Another body dropped to the floor, and another person's blood stained his hoodie. Izuku was on a rampage, no villain was safe. He felt yet another person come up behind him, another attempt to land a sneak attack. He flipped one of the knives he held around and swung his fist backwards, ending the attempt on Biss' life, and the life of the thug behind him. He then looked around and noticed the other thugs keeping their distance. Izuku. Oh? You scared? Come on, I'm just one man, what's so scary about that? Before he could rush forward again, he heard familiar explosions in the distance. Izuku. Oh, looks like Kaken's fighting too. He looked back at Aizawa, who was beginning to stand up. Izuku. Well, if you're good now, I've got some others to help Toodles. He then ran off to a small urban area of the facility where he heard the explosions come from. Bakugo knocked yet another villain unconscious with an explosion. Bakugo. Where are all these extras coming from? Kirishima slammed another into a wall with a hardened fist. Kirishima. No clue, man. You hurt? That made Bakugo laugh. Bakugo. Oh please, none of them could even touch me, shitty hair. Then a thud was heard behind him. When they looked, they noticed a body on the floor with a stab wound through his chest. Izuku. Are you sure, Kaken? Steel, that's what Bakugo felt on his throat. Izuku. And that nickname, shitty hair, is it really a nickname? Bakugo. Why yes, I swear it. A dry and hoarse chuckle was heard as Izuku removed his knife from Bakugo's throat. Izuku. Good. He then stepped back to avoid Kirishima's punch. Izuku. Wu aimed for my head, you really need to learn restraint. Kirishima. Who are you? And how do you know Bakugo? Izuku caught another punch from him and forcefully turned it into a handshake. Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, at your service. It was then Kirishima got an actual look at his face. Kirishima. And no way. Izuku. What? Recognize me? Kirishima backed away and into a wall. Kirishima. Why you? You're the old one who killed my uncle. Izuku. Could you tell me his name? Kirishima, Dari Kirishima. Izuku placed his hand to his chin. Izuku. Oh yes, him. He aided in the sale and acquisition of girls in a hex trafficking ring. Kirishima. Why, you're lying. Izuku shook his head. Izuku. But I'm not. You know it. You saw the investigation after his death, I know you did. It was all over the news. It even led them to some of my other victims. Izuku then turned to Bakugo. Izuku. Keep him from doing anything rash, Kaken. I have more thugs to take care of. He left the building and continued his rampage elsewhere. Yu was sitting in the Bakugo house, enjoying her day off. Neither Bakugos were home, so she had the house to herself. She took a sip of her coffee, and then the lights flickered. Already being used to this entrance, she placed her hand at her throat to stop the inevitable, yet fake, threat on her life, but it never came. Confused, she looked around until she saw it, a small, handwritten note on a table nearby. She walked over and picked it up to read it. Mississippi Takayama, you know me and I know you. Izuku has gone on his own to a very dangerous situation that I can't protect him from. Please head to the facility known as the USJ and aid him. From Inko Midoriya. You. Wonder what's going on. Her phone started ringing. It was from Nizu, UA's principal. She answered. You. Hello? Nizu. Hello, Mississippi Takayama, I have some very important questions for you. You. Which are? Nizu. Why do I have a note on my desk about one Izuku Midoriya, the USJ, and an attack? Why does it say you know about it? And why are my students complaining about a teenager in goggles and a mask wielding 2 hatchets? I can answer 2 of those. Nizu then responded in his best attempt to hide his impatience. Nizu. Well, go ahead. To answer the second first, I just got a similar note of my own, that's how no. For the second, Izuku Midoriya is a friend, business partner, reluctant acquaintance of mine, who I can only guess is currently helping fight off an attack on whatever class is currently at the USJ. Nizu. Well, thank you for your cooperation, we will be speaking again later. He then ended the call and you put her phone away. What the hell is going on? She decided that she would find out and went up to her borrowed room. She put on her hero suit and headed out, calling Kamui Woods for a ride on the way as well. It seems there are multiple people hoping for Izuku's survival, but are all of them trustworthy? Chapter 6. Izuku cut down yet another villain. None of them were really able to fight back. Not only was he fast, he also looked like one of them, making it hard for them to pick him out until it was too late. Izuku had also made his way back towards the center to see what he was hoping he wouldn't. Eraserhead was being pinned down by the beast. Shigaraki. Our pale friend decided to come back. Like what we did. A knife was at his throat in an instant. Izuku. Call it off, or I slit your throat. Shigaraki rose his hand and placed his fingers on the knife, making it rust and decay to dust. Izuku then had to block the man's other arm from touching his face. Izuku backed off. Izuku. Fine then. I'll just kill it instead. Izuku then rushed the beast and buried his remaining knife into its brain, seemingly killing it. He bent down and pulled Eraserhead out from under it. Izuku. Not dead? Aizawa. Not yet. Izuku, good call. Shigaraki. Nomu, kill the pale one. Izuku was then hit hard to the side by a large black fist. He hit a fake tree back first, he then saw the beast, now with a fresh brain, charge at him once more. He couldn't dodge or evade, and his knife had been flung from his hand. The Nomu then hit him again, breaking the tree and inevitably a few ribs as well. He eventually hit the ground and rolled for a few more feet before stopping. He looked up to see the Nomu standing above him. Izuku. What? Scared? Shigaraki. Now. The Nomu raised its fist and aimed it directly at Izuku's head. Just before it swung, a loud crash was heard. The large purple foot kicked the Nomu away. You! Get your hands off my bodyguard! Izuku. Mississippi Takayama? You! Don't worry, your mother sent me. We can finish this quickly. Can you stand? Izuku rose to his feet. Izuku. Barely. You! How about fighting their leader? Izuku let out a pained chuckle. Izuku. Definitely. Handle the Nomu, I've got handjob. You nodded and ran over to where she kicked the Nomu while Izuku walked over to Shigaraki, picking up his knife on the way. Izuku. Just you and me now. Shigaraki. PvP was always my strong suit. Any last words? Izuku. Nah, though I do have some advice. Shigaraki. And that is? Izuku. You look tired, you should go to sleep. Izuku fell to the ground as did Shigaraki in front of him, though Shigaraki didn't fall to any knife wounds, but bullet wounds. Izuku looked to the doors to see a large number of heroes. All Might had also appeared earlier and had saved you from the Nomu. Izuku also noticed snipes start to aim at him. He shakily rose his knife to attempt to defend himself, but his injuries were catching up to him. Izuku. Damn, looks like I die here. You must have also noticed because she started to run over, but she was stopped by a cement wall courtesy of Cementos. You yelling Midoriya. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Nice to know someone other than my mom cares for me. Oh well, guess I'm the one sleeping now. Before Snipe could pull the trigger, Izuku and everyone else's visions started to fade. Izuku. The F-buck? Everyone fell to the ground and he was the only one still conscious. He then saw a boy his age in a hoodie, wearing a mask, goggles, and 2 hatchets and holsters along his legs. He also noticed his head twitch a couple times. Well, what do we have here? Can't have you dying on us, now can we? He bent down and picked Izuku up like he was a feather. Let's get that fixed, shall we? Then Izuku's vision went black, and the attack on the USJ concluded. Chapter 7. Izuku slowly woke up. He was dazed. He could still feel his broken bones. When he fully came to, he realized he was tied to a chair. He tried to pull his arms free, but the rope was too tight. He then started to look around the room he was in. It looked to be a bedroom of some kind and definitely in some sort of high-class house. His chair was facing the doorway, meaning he couldn't hide his being awake from whoever brought him here. Izuku. Damn. Mississippi Takayama is probably in some deep shit with the heroes. Ugh, and I can't risk any of Kaken's classmates getting too angry and seriously hurting him, especially that Kirishima kid. Who knows what his family will do to that piece of shit when they find out he knows me. He started to look around again until his eyes landed on a mirror. An idea suddenly came into his head. Izuku. God, I hope no one's home. He then started hopping the chair over to the mirror before headbutting it, making it shatter. He then fell backwards and grabbed a piece of glass before cutting the rope around his hands. He then stood up and rubbed his wrists. Suddenly he heard footsteps outside the door, so he quickly hid in the wardrobe, quickly wrapping a piece of cloth around the glass piece he had to make a makeshift knife. He then heard the muffled voices of two people, one of which he recognized as whoever took him in the first place. Muffled. Oh, come on, Hoodie, I'm sure everything's intact. Hoodie muffled. I hope so. Izuku then watched as the door opened and two people walked in. One was the boy he saw at the USJ. The other seemed to be a man older than his companion, and wearing an orange hoodie and a black mask with a simple red face on it. Hoodie. Buck. Toby, the mirror's broken. The boy, now known as Toby, cracked his neck and a couple fingers as he turned around. Toby. Well, that's no good. Where could he have gone? Izuku watched as the two both simultaneously looked at the wardrobe. No, not the wardrobe, him. They were making eye contact with him. Toby slowly reached for his hatchets, but Izuku wouldn't let him. Izuku charged out of the wardrobe and swung his glass shard at Toby, who evaded it and attempted to hit Izuku with one of his hatchets, though Izuku dodged his strike. This short scuffle left Izuku between the two and the door. Izuku. This has been fun and all, but I need to go. Hoodie. I wouldn't try that if I were you. Toby. Nah, let him go. I want to see this. Izuku now started thinking harder. These two, presumably his captors, were going to let him go and run through the house. Their reactions told him that they were most likely working for someone else, someone he wouldn't be able to beat in his current state. He then realized would be much better off on the side of the room with the windows. Izuku. Where are we? Toby, a house. Hoodie. In the middle of nowhere, you're better off coming with us. Izuku. I'll take my chances. He charged again, this time going to the side Hoodie was on to keep his distance from Toby. He made it past the two and dove out the window, only to find he was on the third story the entire time. Thinking quickly, he grabbed onto a branch of a nearby tree and used it to swing to another tree, though the momentum dislocated his shoulder. From there he climbed down to the ground where he popped his shoulder back in. He then started running, but that wouldn't last long. Just a few minutes after his escape, Izuku collapsed to the ground. He was tired, battered, and physically broken. Even with his unnatural endurance and pain tolerance, there's only so far he could go with as many broken bones as he had. As he crawled to a fallen log to rest against, he noticed a piece of paper with writing on it. Izuku. What the? He reached over and was about to pick it up when a chill ran down his spine, his self-preservation instincts telling him touching it was a very bad idea. Deciding he needed to get put of there as soon as possible, he stood up and began walking. It had been hours and it was almost dark out. Izuku noticed something in the distance, a gate. Now with a set destination, he began speed walking, which was the fastest he could go at the moment. Just as he was about to pass the gate he stumbled but was able to catch himself on a tree, but what his hand touched didn't feel like bark. He looked to his hand and a chill ran down his spine once more. Izuku, Buck. He suddenly got the feeling he was being watched. He looked behind him. only to see nothing but trees for miles. Not wanting to stick around to find out what he had just awakened, he left the woods quickly. Yu was sitting inside a detainment cell inside a police station. She had been there for the past week as the HPSC decided what to do with her. Her obvious connection to Izuku had called her credibility as a hero and not a villain spy into question. Though Eraserhead had defended her as Izuku did, as he said, he didn't hurt the students. The words of one underground hero didn't mean much to the commission, however. Add on to the fact that no one, not even Inko, who had been able to get in and out of the cell easily, had heard from Izuku in the past week. Suddenly her cell was opened, and in stepped the small, white-furred principal of UA himself, Nizu. Nizu. Why, hello, Mississippi Takayama. I believe you still owe me some answers. Chapter 8. Yu was now inside an interrogation room, and to her it was weird being on the other side glass for once. She glanced at the one-way window, knowing that heroes that she had once worked with were behind it, waiting for an explanation. The door then opened and the small rodent known as Nizu walked inside. He then hopped onto the chair across from her as the door closed. Nizu. So, Mississippi Takayama. Do you know why you're here? She nodded. You. I'm here because I showed concern for the life of a dangerous vigilante. Nizu. Correct. Now I'm going to ask you some questions. Please answer them truthfully. She nodded and motioned for him to continue. Nizu. Izuku Midoriya, aka the Smiler, what is he to you? You. He was my bodyguard. That's all. Suddenly the speaker crackled to life and a voice she recognized as a detective named Tsukachi. Tsukachi. That's a lie. You. Fine. He's grown to be a friend of sorts. Tsukachi. True. Nizu. Thank you. Next, why did you know of the attack? You. His mother gave me a note similar to yours. I guess she was with that teenager you talked about on the phone. Nizu. Do you know the teenager? You. No, but I did see him take Midoriya. I don't know where he took him though. Tsukachi. Both answers are true. Nizu. Okay, one last one. Have you come into contact and shared any important information with villains of any sort? You. What? No, I'm a hero. Tsukachi. True. Nizu. Okay. You're free to go. You. What? Nizu. Is there a problem? You. Personally? No. But officially both vigilantism and murder are crimes. Shouldn't I be charged with aiding a known criminal and serial killer? Nizu. Unlike the commission, I listen to all sides. Eraserhead has convinced me that he isn't a threat. Now let's go. We have a missing teenager to find. The lights then flickered. You. No. No, we don't. Also look behind you. Izuku. Why do you have to spoil my fun? Nizu whipped around to see Izuku standing behind him. Nizu. I would assume you're Izuku Midoriya. Izuku. Yes, now if you don't mind, I need a doctor. He then started to fall, but you caught him. You. What happened? Izuku. This is from the USJ fight. But long story short, I believe I was kidnapped by some demon's lackeys. You. As soon as you're okay, you are so telling me that story. Izuku let out a pained chuckle. Izuku. Will do, Takayama. Nizu. Let's go. You, right? The two then rushed out of the police station, physically broken serial killer draped over Yu's shoulder. It had been 2 days since Izuku had popped into the police station when he awoke. He slowly sat up and looked around. He seemed to be in a mix of a nurse's office and a hospital room. Then something tapped his shoulder. When he turned around, a short elderly woman wearing a hero suit was looking at him. Izuku. You're recovery girl, right? Recovery girl. That's right, Sonny, and I'm honestly surprised you're awake right now. Izuku. Well, it's not like I felt all of that. Recovery girl. Not the pain, I know you're resistant to it. My quirk uses your stamina as energy to heal. You should still be asleep due to how much I used. Izuku shrugged. Izuku. I'm not exactly normal anymore, ma'am. Where am I? He stood up from the bed. Recovery girl. You're in UA. Izuku sighed. Izuku. Other than you, Nizu, and Takayama, who knows? Recovery girl. Katsuki Bakugo knows. You should have seen him when he saw us rolling you in here. The only reason he left was because we made him. That boy, I wish I knew what goes on in his brain. Izuku. And my clothes? Recovery girl. Burned. There are new ones on that table. She pointed to a table across the room. Izuku. And I assume a knife wasn't included? Recovery girl. As much as Nizu trusts you, the commission wouldn't let him give you any weapons. Izuku. Ugh. Fair enough, I guess. Our class is going right now? Recovery girl. Yes, they are. Also, Nizu would like to speak to you. Izuku. Good, cause I want to speak to him. He walked over to the fresh clothes and entered the bathroom, coming out a minute later fully dressed. Izuku. These feel much better than my old ones. Recovery girl. Your old ones were stiff and crushed from all the dried blood, so of course new clothes would feel better. Just then the door opened. Kirishima. Sorry for barging in, but Kaminari's show. He paused when he laid his eyes on Izuku. Izuku. Sup? Kirishima, you. The red-haired boy charged at Izuku, who sidestepped his punch and chopped him in the neck. Izuku. Sorry for dumping this one on you. I should get going though. Recovery girl. It's quite alright, Sonny. I should really go check on 1A now since he said something about that Kaminari boy. Izuku then left the room and headed in a random direction. He saw something in his peripheral vision, so he turned to look. He saw Inko peeking around a corner and waved before disappearing from his view. He turned once more to keep walking. He had to warn Nizu about the forest he was kept within. Chapter 9. Izuku entered Nizu's office. Inside was Nizu, Eraserhead, Yu, and Midnight. The only sound that was made was of the door closing, which made the three look at him. Nizu. Mr. Midoriya, it's nice you could join us. Izuku. Yeah. You feeling okay, Midoriya? Izuku rotated his shoulder. Izuku. A little stiff from not moving, but otherwise I'm good as new. Well, you know what I mean. He then spotted the knife Eraser kept on him. Izuku used his supernatural speed to race over and grab it. Eraser had attempted to turn to grab it from Izuku's grasp, only to find him already gone. Izuku. Yep, just as I thought, the cuts are gone. The heroes turned to see Hum standing at a mirror Nizu kept in his office. You. Really? You just got back and you're already focused on your cheek cuts? Izuku. Yes, they're my look, my whole shtick. Before anyone could stop him, Izuku carved a smile into his cheeks. Midnight. Doesn't that hurt? Izuku shook his head. Izuku. Haven't felt pain in years. A sudden feeling washed over him, like he shouldn't have said that. He turned around to see the R-rated hero smiling sadistically. Midnight. Oh? Well, I'd be happy to help you test that. How's about you and I go to my apartment to do so? Izuku. I'm 15. Midnight. Someone so young going through so much, oh, the resilience of youth. Izuku looked to Eraser, only for the hero to shake his head. The same happened with both Nizu and Yu. He just barely avoided a whip. Izuku. Shit. Class 1A was learning math with ectoplasm. Ectoplasm. Now, the x will be replaced with what it equals up here. Meaning the x down here gets replaced with 5 plus 7 dv. The door then swung open and a pale figure rushed inside. Bakugo recognized the figure as Izuku. Izuku. If she asks, I was not here. He then ran to the other end of the room, ripped a vent cover off, and slid inside, holding the cover on from the inside. Then the familiar figure of Midnight walked into the room. Midnight. I ecto see a handsome, pale, slit-mouthed man come by here? Ectoplasm. No. Midnight. I was sure I saw him come down here. She turned to leave before pausing and looking at the ground where fresh droplet of blood were. She giggled before following them over to the vent Izuku was hiding in. She ripped the cover from his hands to see him, a fearful look on his face. Izuku. Shit! He tried to crawl further back, but she grabbed his leg and dragged him out. Before they left the room, Izuku was able to get a grip on the door frame. Izuku yelling, Katsuki, help! Bakugo. Yeah, no. He lost his grip and was dragged down the hall. Izuku yelling, traitor. The door to Nizu's office slammed shut as Izuku dragged in a tied-up Midnight. Nizu, welcome back. Izuku. Don't welcome back me. You. What happened? Izuku gave her a dead and tired look. Izuku. You don't want to know. Izuku then walked over and handed Eraserhead his knife back. The man put it back in its sheath. Izuku then sat down in a chair. Nizu. Now that we're all calm and collected, we can get to business. Midoriya. Izuku. Yeah? Nizu. What exactly happened when you were kidnapped? Izuku. I was tied up in a chair, broke a mirror to escape, hid from my captors, escaped, fell from the third-floor window, ran for a good 10 minutes before my broken bones decided to not cooperate, nearly touched some cursed paper, walked until I found the forest exit, did touch another cursed paper, and came to you. Nizu. I see. Was one of your captors a teenage boy wearing a mask, goggles, and wielding twin hatchets? Izuku. Yes. He's annoying. Nizu. Do you know his name? Izuku. All I know is that he goes by Toby. Nizu. And do you believe your mother would be conspiring with this man or his associates? Izuku. No, why? Nizu then handed Izuku 2 pieces of paper. Nizu. The one on your left is a note left by your mother to Mississippi Takayama. The one on your right was a note this Toby left on my desk. Izuku read them over. Izuku. She's still not with them. Her writing is protective, while whoever's this is seems like they wanted you there for their own reason. Most likely to get me. Eraserhead. Do you know why they would want you? Izuku. Probably the same reason the League of Losers did. I look villainous, act villainous, am immune to pain, and I'm damn good at killing. That's a dangerous combination. Nizu. Dangerous enough to put themselves on the most wanted list for one man? Izuku. Hey, it was just a guess. Other than that, I have no clue. Eraserhead. Do you think they'll go after your mother? Izuku scoffed. Izuku. Even if they wanted to, they'd have to find her first. Which, now that I think about it, they might be able to do. Nizu. Are you worried about her safety? I can assign heroes to be protection. Izuku shook his head. Izuku. No. Nothing short of top 50 would be able to stop these people. Nizu. And what makes you say that? Izuku stood up and placed his hands on Nizu's desk. Izuku. It takes a lot to even faze me, okay? So when a sheet of bucking paper carries enough bad vibes to make me shiver in fear, whatever they're connected to would make anyone under top 50 shit themselves. Nizu. Could you make a drawing of what the paper you touched was? Izuku nodded and grabbed a nearby pen. Nizu slid over a blank paper and Izuku began to draw. Izuku. This. And there were others too. Each had this weird stick figure guy on them. Nizu. Whoever this is, his quirk must be powerful for whoever originally made this to be so scared. Izuku. That's the thing. I don't think he has a quirk. Chapter 10. Nizu. What do you mean he doesn't have a quirk? Izuku. It's just what I said. I don't think his power is a quirk. Aizawa. So what is he, a demon? Izuku shrugged. Izuku. Maybe. I mean, look at me. I'm quirkless, and yet my mere presence bucks with the lights. As he said this, the lights flickered and he suddenly appeared next to Nizu. Izuku. And I'm fast. Aizawa. You mean you fought that Noma thing without a quirk? Izuku. Yep. Actually, being quirkless is what caused, you know. He gestured to his face. Izuku. This. You. Yeah. The pictures aren't the prettiest to look at. Nizu. Getting back on track, what makes you think this man doesn't have a quirk? Izuku. Tell me. What did you feel just before you saw me at the police station? Nizu. A chill ran up my spine and I felt like I was in danger. Izuku. Kind of like a ghost just passed through you. Nizu. Where are you going with this? Izuku. The supernatural. Clearly something bigger is at play that's some hick messing with his quirk. Izuku looked up and out of the window behind Nizu to the street. Out there he noticed the usual crowds walking back and forth, but something stood out. He saw a little girl in a pink dress and what appeared to be blood running down her face, making eye contact with him. You, Midoriya. Izuku blinked, and she was gone. He mentally cursed Recovery Girl for healing his eyelids and turned around to face you. Izuku. What? Nizu. You spaced out for over 5 minutes. Izuku. Over 5? But it was only a couple seconds. You stood up and placed her hand on his shoulder. You. Are you sure you're okay? Izuku. Why, yeah. What time is it? You pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. You. This. He didn't pay attention to the time, only the bit of green that appeared to move off the screen. Putting the pieces together, he smacked her phone away. You. What the hell? The lights to the building went out. Izuku. Damn. They're here. Nizu. I'll initiate the lockdown. Lock them in until we take care of them. He pressed a button on his desk, but nothing happened. Nizu. The power's been cut. Izuku. Or something powerful is disrupting it. Nizu. Like what? Izuku. Him. It took a second to adjust to the dark, but then everyone in the room could see Izuku pointing outside. There, they saw a man eerily similar to the one from Izuku's drawing. Their visions went black for just a second before coming back. The man was gone, but the power was back. Nizu. Search for him. Izuku. That won't be necessary. He wanted us to see him. He knew I would talk. He probably knew I would escape too. Aizawa. He's toying with us. Izuku. We can't stop him. Or at least he believes we can't. Nizu. If he is supernatural, then decades of killing Quirk people would have his confidence up. Izuku. Right. Nizu. Nizu. Yes? Izuku. He's after me. I'll handle him. Nizu. Are you sure you can take him? Izuku smirked. Izuku. No. But when the hell have plans ever gone right? If today was just a warning, I doubt they'll be merciful with any heroic bystanders. Nizu. Wait, I have an idea. He quickly began to type on his computer. Nizu. Aha, no one who's ever gone missing in that forest were heroes. He may be wary of anyone with Quirk training. Izuku. I doubt it, but go on. Nizu. Stay near UA. If my theory is correct, he may leave you alone. Izuku. HM. Can I freely explore the campus? Nizu. Depends. What's the purpose? Izuku. I just want to be able to walk around with your permission so I don't get swarmed every time I go somewhere. Suddenly the door swung open. Kirishima. Principal Nizu, sir, there's a villi. He made eye contact with Izuku again. Izuku. Sup? Kirishima, yelling. Why is he here? Izuku. I needed medical attention. Aizawa. He fought the villains at the USJ. Nizu. He has important information. You. He's my friend. Izuku walked over and draped his arm over the student's shoulder. Izuku. And it looks like you'll be seeing a lot more of me. Kirishima. Yay. Izuku let out a raspy laugh. Izuku. That's what I thought. Nizu. Mr. Midoriya. I suggest finding your mother and filling her in on our plans. Izuku nodded. Izuku. It's probably for the best. Alright. Let's go, Takayama. She stood up and walked towards the door. Izuku let Kirishima go and they both walked out. That day, the heroes began to realize that more than villains threatened the natural world. Chapter 11. Izuku woke up to find he was in the middle of a large gymnasium. Izuku. What the buck? He felt something in his pocket, so he took it out. It was a knife. Attached to the knife was a sticky note. Izuku. Great. What's the catch for giving me a knife? He read the note. Aizawa, hello Midoriya. Of your reading this, it means you found the knife I gave you. Now, I figured that since we're allowing you to stay here and use UA as a safe space, I'd include you in a little training exercise for 1A. I release them into the gym for 5 minutes, you have to fend them off. This will be a test of teamwork for them and self-control for you. Izuku. HM. Better than I thought it would be. He then noticed some writing on the back. Aizawa P.S. Recovery Girl is not here today, so refrain from deep cuts and extreme bleeding. Izuku groaned in annoyance. Izuku yelling Buck. Aizawa. Be ready. Izuku. Yeah, send them in. The doors opened to reveal Class 1A with Kirishima in the lead. Izuku yelling. Sup? Bakugo. Izuku? Izuku loudly. Kaken's here too? Great, I assume you all know what's happening? Kirishima stepped up. Kirishima yelling. We're taking you down. Izuku loudly. You can try shitty hair. Aizawa. Today you all will be fighting against an opponent who feels very little pain and has supernatural stamina. If you can't fight him off as a class, any future encounters with villains such as the League will not end in your favor. Good luck. Izuku loudly. You heard the man. He pointed his knife to the class. Izuku loudly. Come at me. A sudden chill filled the air as a large amount of ice began to surround Izuku. It didn't encase him, but it certainly shrunk the area he could fight. Then a boy with a tail that Izuku recalled being named Ojiro leapt over the ice, and once he landed in front of Izuku, his role in the battle was sealed. Izuku rushed forward faster than the boy could process, and went for a neck chop, just to get pushed back by a large shadow creature. Izuku. You must be Dark Shadow. DS. That's my name and I'll be the one to take you down. The shadow beast rushed Izuku, who sidestepped the attack. Izuku. If you were just a little faster, maybe. He rushed Ojiro once more and managed to chop his neck this time around. He then felt something approaching from behind. He whipped around to find Kirishima attempting to attack him. Izuku continuously pushed his fists out of the way. Izuku. I've been told more about you. I don't think holding petty grudges like you are is manly at all. This stunned the red-haired boy long enough for Izuku to grab and toss him behind himself, directly into Kaminari, who was attempting a sneak attack. Izuku. 3 down, 17 to go. Izuku was trapped. His legs were bound together with one of Mineta's balls and some of Siro's tape, his hands were frozen in a block of ice, and he himself was floating in midair with a strange device on his back that constantly pushed him away from walls. He looked down to see the few that were still conscious, which were 1A's powerhouses and a couple other students. Bakugo was awake, though he was bleeding from a cut above his eye. Todoroki was pretty much unscathed. Hatsume, who was still covered in pale pink sparks and had placed the device on his back, was just watching him drift through the air. Uraraka was fine but seemed on the verge of vomiting, and Mineta, whose sole contribution to the fight was the one ball he threw, was still cowering behind Todoroki. Izuku loudly. This is a bit overkill. The buzzer then went off and Aizawa entered the gym and promptly took a look at the floating serial killer and sighed. Aizawa. Alright, Class 1A wins this match, but just barely. Uraraka. But how? He's restrained and unable to harm people anymore. Aizawa. While that is true, too many of you were taken down before then. If he wasn't instructed to hold back, you would all likely be dead with the exception of maybe Todoroki. If this was a real battlefield, it would be seen as a disaster. 15 heroes fell in battle before the remaining 5 finally took out one individual villain. He gestured to their limp classmates. Aizawa. There is a reason this happened. I want you all to think about it and tell me what you think it is tomorrow. Now let him go. Uraraka nodded and released him. Hatsume caught him and took the device off while also melting the ice around his hands. Then Aizawa walked over, cut the tape off, and poured a liquid onto the ball, which dissolved it. Izuku. What is that? Aizawa. A precaution. Mineta himself stated that his balls can stick for a whole day, so Niza had an anti-pop-off chemical made. There are similar actions taken for every quirk here that could be used for mayhem-causing pranks. Izuku let out a dry chuckle as he stood up. Izuku, I guess that's fair. Oh, you won't see me around campus for a couple days. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Aizawa. And why is that? Izuku. If you knew, you'd try to stop me. He turned and began walking away, knife in hand. Izuku. See ya, Eraser. He then left the gym. Chapter 12. A scream was heard as a knife was plunged into a man's chest. It was then removed as a dry chuckle rang out in the apartment. A pale hand brought the blade to the man's face before quickly slicing through his cheeks, creating a bloody smile. The man let out one last breath before passing away. A folder was then dropped on his body. Izuku. Sleep tight, bastard. He exited the room and made his way to the roof of the building. He felt a presence behind him. Izuku. Either you're getting sloppy, or you have something to tell me, Mom. He turned his head to find his pale-faced mother come from around a corner. Inko. While I do have something to tell you, you're also getting better. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Thank for the compliment. Now, what is it? Inko. You should go back to UA, you'll be safer there. Izuku. Maybe, maybe not. This bastard had the confidence to pull his little stunt directly in front of UA. Nizu's theory that he's scared of trained heroes is hopeful ignorance at best. If he's after me, then I'm not about to hand him an all-you-can-eat buffet of high schoolers. Inko. If he was as powerful as you think, he'd have taken you by now. Izuku scoffed. Izuku. Leaders like him hide behind lackeys so they don't have to get their hands dirty no matter how powerful they are. If he wanted me, he would have gotten me already himself. Inko. What makes you say he wants you? His men could have gotten you again if he wanted them to. Izuku paused. She was right. He had multiple people working for him, a few skilled enough to break into UA without tripping alarms. If this tall man wanted him, he would have been kidnapped 5 times over by now. Izuku. They're watching me. Keeping tabs. They want me scared, want me distant. Inko. But why? Izuku. I'm not sure. Inko. You need to figure it out. Izuku nodded. Izuku. I will. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Inko. Good luck. She walked back the way she came and disappeared around the corner. Izuku didn't follow. He knew she'd be gone. He let out a sigh and walked to the edge of the roof. Out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning struck nearby, and once the flash was gone, so was Izuku. You laid down on her couch. It had been a while since she could relax in her own apartment. Suddenly her lights flickered. She sighed and sat up. 3 days, that's all the peace I get? His voice came from behind her. Izuku. Don't act like you didn't miss me. He walked around and sat on the couch next to her. She spied the fresh blood stains on his hoodie. I see you've been busy. Izuku. Yeah, you know, the usual. Generally bad people. You sighed. I'm gonna guess there's more to this than you just visiting me? Izuku nodded. Izuku. I know you're smart, which is why you also know that this tall guy being scared of heroes is bullshit. Yeah. What about it? Izuku. Think about it. He's powerful enough to get me himself, yet sends his men after me. His men would be able to grab me if he wanted them to, but they don't. He's keeping you at a distance? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Obviously he hasn't exactly told me himself, so this is all guesswork. And we aren't telling Nizu right now because? Izuku. Because I have a plan, one he would never agree to. And that is? Izuku. Asking the man himself. I'm going back to the forest tomorrow. Yelling. Are you out of your mind? He might be trying to keep you away, but that doesn't mean he won't try to kill you. Izuku. I know, but this is the only way to find out what's going on. Can I count on you to be my escape route? You sighed. Sure. Izuku. Good. Now I have one last favor to ask. Can I? Before he could say it, she spoke up. You. Yes, you can sleep on my couch. Izuku. I knew you wouldn't let me down. She let out a chuckle and stood up. You. It's getting late, so I'm heading to bed. Tate get some actual sleep, Midoriya. Izuku merely nodded as she walked out of the room and turned off the light. Tomorrow, he would get answers. Chapter 13. A car pulled up to a dirt road but stopped as it came upon a fallen tree. It turned off and out stepped both Izuku and Yu. They looked out into the forest ahead of them. Yu looked over at Izuku. You sure about this? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Yeah. I need answers and I can fight back this time. Yu. I'll be right behind you. Izuku. Just keep your distance from the house. If either of us get into trouble, get big and get us out. Yu nodded. Yu. Right. They began their trek into the forest. They walked past the open gate on the road and Izuku looked at the tree that held the paper he touched when he escaped. The paper was gone. Izuku. Damn. Yu. What? Izuku. Keep an eye out for people. Someone took the note thing I touched. Yu. Right. The cursed papers. Izuku. If we take a rest, be sure to check where your hands go. They tend to show up at unexpected places. Yu. Yeah. They stayed silent for a while until an hour into the walk. Yu. How much longer? Izuku. About 4 more hours of walking. Yu. 4? Izuku. It took 6 hours for me to escape last time and that was with broken bones. Yu sighed. Yu. Why so far? Izuku. To hide. Inko pulled her knife from a man's body in an alley. She had to get more information to help Izuku. She suddenly felt a presence behind her. She whipped around and caught a hatchet by the handle. It was aimed for her head. Inko. Are you Toby? The boy in question appeared from around the corner. His head twitched slightly and he cracked a finger. Toby. Oh? You know me? Inko. Izuku told me of you and your master. Toby. I see all good, I hope. Inko. Tied to a chair, curse papers, a direct threat to Yue. Toby. Just those? That was nothing truly. Another presence appeared behind her. She flipped her knife around and swiped backwards, just for her wrist to be caught. What felt like a gun was pushed into her side. Toby. I was having fun, Hoodie. Hoodie. We were told to grab her, not play with her. Now let's go. Inko. Or what? You'll shoot me? You'll find that most ineffective. Hoodie. And why is that? Inko. My son and I are more similar than you think. She flipped the hatchet in her remaining hand, ripped the other from Hoodie's grasp, and swung at the man behind her. He stepped back, but a gash was still made across his chest. She lunged at him, making him shoot her in the leg, but that did nothing to stop her. She stabbed down towards his neck, but he managed to hit her hand to the side, redirecting the stab to his shoulder. She ripped the knife downwards, tearing through his skin and freeing her blade. She stepped forward, turned around, and swung the hatchet she had, cutting through the handle of the one Toby was currently swinging at her. She leapt back as the wounded Hoodie tried to grab her leg. Inko. What is your plan? Hoodie stood up and held his bleeding shoulder. Hoodie. We were supposed to bring you in to lure Smiler in. Though, it clearly didn't go to plan. Inko smirked, something she hadn't done in a while. Inko. Too bad you did this for nothing. He's probably already there. Toby. Really? Why? Inko. Simple. He wanted answers, and your master is the only place to get them. She then stood straight and raised her knife towards them. Inko. I will ensure Izuku gets out in one piece by keeping the two of you here. Toby shrugged. Toby. Not like we would make a difference. Can we have a little fun now, Hoodie? The man shook his head. Hoodie. No. We're still taking her. Do it. A hard chop met the back of her neck, knocking her unconscious and sending her to the floor. You two really need to work on your strategy. It was now dark in Izuku and you were finally able to see the large mansion. The lights were on and it seemed that people were inside. I don't see how we could sneak in. If everyone here is like you. Izuku. Then it's likely we're already spotted. You don't know anything about presents, and I can't suppress mine like them and my mom can. What's the plan then? Izuku. I try anyway. Stay here. You sure? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Be right back. He left their hiding place and waked towards the mansion. He would get his answers. Chapter 14. Izuku crept up towards the mansion, keeping as low and out of sight of the windows as possible. Sometimes he thought he was spotted, though no one pointed him out, so he figured he was still in the clear. Once he had gotten to the side of the building, he snuck up to one of the windows and peeked inside. There were many people walking around, and while Izuku didn't recognize them, it was clear to him they were powerful. Not as powerful as the tall man, but definitely somewhere above himself. Deciding he was still too exposed, Izuku began to climb up the side of the mansion. He eventually made it to the top of the building while successfully avoiding windows. Now that he was on the roof, he had access to the skylights. He made his way over to the closest one and looked inside. Once again there were many people, or at least what looked like people. He even spotted the little girl he saw when at UA. Izuku. Damn. How are there this many? Why don't you come down and ask? Izuku whipped around and drew his knife, to see nothing. Oh! Good reflexes. Izuku turned to the right. Once again, nothing. Not the fastest though. Izuku didn't move this time. Instead he decided to focus. If he couldn't sense this person or thing, he would lose if it meant him harm. Oh? Giving up? Good choice. Izuku then felt something. It wasn't this being's presence, but it was something. It happened again, from where the voice last spoke. Was this person teleporting? It would make sense. Izuku. I should thank you. For what? Izuku. For letting me do this. Izuku felt the thing teleport again. The small distortion of space happened from both the voice's position and its destination. Izuku swung the knife at the destination and felt it connect. Wah! He heard a thump, indicating his opponent had fallen to the floor. He turned to see, a middle schooler? The kid was wearing a green cap and tunic, as well as other fantasy adventure gear. He had pointed ears and what looked to be permanent blood tears running down his face. He picked the boy up by his collar. Izuku. What are you? The boy began to laugh. You really don't know? Izuku shook him. Izuku. Don't play games with me. Another round of laughter came from the boy. Izuku. What's so funny, kid? The boy stopped laughing. Kid? I'm older than you, man, also. You have no idea what games mean to me. Izuku put his knife to the boy's throat. Izuku. Talk. Now. Geez, alright. But first. He teleported once again and appeared behind Izuku, who whipped around to face him. That's better. Now I should probably introduce myself. He teleported as Izuku lunged at him, appearing to his left. My name is Ben. I drowned and my spirit became linked to my favorite video game. Now I look like this and can do a bunch of stuff that I have no interest in telling you. Izuku turned to him. Ben. Now you? Let me guess, fast, strong, and quiet? What happened? Death by parents? Bullies? Suicide? Izuku. I never died, thank you very much. Ben. What? But you're whiter than a canvas, I figured you were like half ghost. Izuku. No. Try bleached and burned. Ben. What about your cheeks? Izuku. Did this myself. I even cut off my eyelids, but this got healed after I escaped this place. Ben. Oh, so you're the one the big guy's waiting for. Izuku looked surprised. Izuku. You mean the tall guy is waiting for me? Ben laughed. Ben. Yes, he is. Why don't we go down and pay him a visit? Hold on tight. Ben grabbed Izuku, who blinked and they were suddenly in the middle of a large room. Upon closer inspection, it was an office room. Ben. Got him, boss. Thank you, Ben. Ben nodded and disappeared. Izuku slowly turned to look at the person that spoke, seeing the being he was there to see. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Chapter 15. Izuku didn't move. Despite the seemingly friendly invitation to sit, Izuku felt the being in front of him wasn't as keen to make friends. After a few seconds of silence, the man began to speak again. Oh right, you don't know who I am. I suppose I should introduce myself. The man approached Izuku, but stopped halfway before leaning forward slightly. I am Slender Man. Izuku, despite the off-putting feeling he was experiencing, couldn't help but let out a small laugh. Slender. What is so amusing? Izuku. You mean to tell me that all this time, I've been scared of a guy that goes by tall and skinny? The man reacted with what Izuku could only describe as confusion, making newfound confidence flow through his veins. Izuku approached Slender Man, pulled out his knife, and placed the tip directly at the white-skinned monster's heart. Izuku, you're going to give me answers, or you won't be leaving this office. Slender, not being intimidated by the shorter being, simply spoke. Slender. I had a feeling this would happen, which is why I had my proxies go and grab these. Snapped his fingers and the doors to his office opened. In walked 3 men, each dragging someone behind them. Izuku recognized 2 of them, Toby and Hoodie, but the third was new to him. A man in a dull yellow jacket with short brown hair and a doll-like mask was the third of the man's personal lackeys. It was then Izuku noticed who the 3 being dragged in were. His mother Bakugo, and Yu, all unconscious. He also noticed none of the so-called proxies were unscathed either. Hoodie had a large gash in his shoulder that was still bleeding, Toby was missing both of his hatchets as well as singed clothes, and the masked man's mask was cracked over its right eye. Slender. As you can see, you are in no position to negotiate. Izuku shakily lowered his knife. Izuku. I see. Izuku looked to his captured friends and family. The way they were dragged by the hair, the bruised and dirty marks. Their helpless faces made him remember something. Pain, that's what he felt. He was just walking home from school, why was this happening? Shoved into a familiar alley, Izuku's hands landed in a pile of broken glass. He looked up to see a familiar head of spiky blonde hair. Izuku. KK Kaken. Why? The boy smiled as one of his underlings brought over a bucket. Bakugo. Why? To show you your place, useless Deku. He took the bucket and dumped the contents onto Izuku, drenching him in a mixture of bleach and explosive sweat. Bakugo. See you later, Deku. He laughed as he sent a spark at Izuku, igniting the mixture. But the result wasn't expected. Bakugo was expecting a quick blast that would hurt, but would ultimately heal, not a blaze hotter than he'd ever felt. As he burned, Izuku saw a look of helplessness in Bakugo's eyes. It was dark except for the television. Blood dripped from the knife a pale-skinned Izuku held in his hand. At his feet was what he assumed to be a dying Inko. Her eyes held the same look of helplessness Bakugo's had. As if they wanted to help, but couldn't. Inko. Izuku. Cough go. Back in the office, Izuku's eyes met their reflection in a mirror Slender Man kept in his office. In his eyes, the look he had grown to hate could be seen. Toby laughed. Toby. Oh my god, look at him, he doesn't know what to do. Izuku's gaze shot over to the beat-up teen and his comrades. He felt a hand land on his shoulder. Slender. Well, now that you're calm, let us sit in. Izuku. Let go of me. The faceless being paused. Slender. Could you repeat that? Izuku. I said. Let go of me. Slender. It appears you didn't understand me. Izuku's view began to fade to black, but unlike the USJ, he was able to resist. Black tendrils sprouted from Slender Man's back and began to approach Izuku and the hostages. Slender brought his head to Izuku's ear. Slender. You are in no position to make demands. Aim. I clear? Izuku turned his head to face his captors. Izuku. Crystal. But neither are you. Slender. Oh? What makes you say that? Suddenly his tendrils were cut off and laying on the floor. Surprised, he looked to Izuku. Izuku. You can bluff all you want, but I see now why you're doing this. You want me scared, want me subservient. Why? Because it's you that's scared. Slender. Do not mistake my invitation for cowardice. Izuku turned to face him and pointed his blade at him. Slender regenerated his tendrils. Izuku. You became a coward the second you needed hostages to make me listen. This angered the hostile Slender Man as Izuku could feel the pressure in the room grow heavier, and the tendrils became bigger and longer. Slender Man. You think I, lord of this manor, leader of our kind, is afraid of a child with a knife? A smug look appeared on Izuku's face. Izuku. You're free to prove me wrong. He swung his knife around to point at the others. Izuku. Let them go and prove you don't need your lapdogs. Without an order being said, the three proxies did what Izuku suggested and left the room. Izuku pointed his knife back towards Slender Man. Izuku. Well, come on then, tall, dark, and ugly. Let's see who's right. Izuku charged at his opponent, who sent tendrils his way. Their fight had just begun. Chapter 16. Deep within a forest laid a mansion. This mansion had many residents, most human, in some capacity, others not so much. Each powerful in their own right, each having body counts at least in the double digits. They had a leader, a creature that had no face, yet was perfectly understandable. He was tall, slender even. He preyed on the weak, but was no pushover, having bested all of his tenants at some point in their elongated lives. The strongest had been overpowered, that fastest had been cut off, the smartest had been played like a pawn. All of them had been outclassed by their leader. So to say the one seeing what looked to be a heavily scarred human surviving being thrown from his office was a shock would be an understatement. Izuku was flung out of the doors of Slender Man's office and flew over a railing that led to what looked to be the main foyer of the mansion. He flipped in the air, narrowly avoiding two more tendrils that were sent his way. Izuku landed on the bottom floor, taking note of a few of the people he saw. The bent person from before was there alongside a man in a blue mask, a clown, and the girl in a pink dress he saw back at Yue. He quickly swung his knife in front of him, cutting through another tendril. Izuku yelling, "Come on, fight me!" His vision blurred for a moment, and when it came back, his opponent was in front of him. Slender. You are a fool to think you can beat me. I have governed this manor for centuries. You do not have th. Izuku scoffed. Izuku. It just sounds like you're stalling. Waiting for me to get tired? He brought his knife up to his face, and liked the black blood off the blade. Izuku. You'll have to try harder than that. Izuku then rushed the pale monster and got within an arm's reach. Just as he thrusted his knife into the heart of this creature, Slender Man teleported once more, this time behind Izuku. A sudden force launched Izuku into the wall that was once behind his opponent. The force made him go through the wall, and out the other side, into a hallway. He quickly got to his feet and started running. While he did believe Slender Man was scared, he knew the fear wasn't of his current abilities, but what he might grow to be. Izuku. Just gotta buy time for the others to get up. He sensed something coming and went to the floor, sliding under a tendril that just burst through the wall. Thinking quickly, he entered the first room he could find, leaving the door open. It took several seconds, but the man slowly walked into the room. These theatrics proved to Izuku that he wasn't taking this fight seriously. Izuku attempted to ambush him from behind the door, but his arm was caught by Slender Man's hand. Slender. I am growing tired of this. I do not wish to fight any longer. Izuku. You should have thought of that before you came after me. He dropped his knife and caught it with his other hand. Seeing a tendril coming, he tossed the knife again, catching it in his mouth before his other hand was captured as well. He then pulled himself towards Slender Man, and before the man could react, stabbed him in the shoulder. Izuku was dropped as Slender let out a pained noise and quickly ran from the room. He was getting lucky, but he didn't know just how much luck he had left. You awoke, tied to a chair. The last thing she remembered was being dragged out of the office and feeling something hit her in the head. She looked up and took note of her surroundings. It was dark and damp, the floor was made of stone, and both Inko and Bakugo were there. Upon closer inspection, she was able to notice the cell that they had been thrown in, and the man called Hoodie guarding it. Inko. Awake? You looked to her fellow captor. You. Yeah. She heard a crash above them. You. What was that? Bakugo. Izuku and that freaky tall guy are duking it out. You. You can't be serious. Bakugo nodded. Inko. Unfortunately, I believe Izuku's losing. You. We have to do something. A knock on the metal bars was heard. Hoodie. I wouldn't if I were you. The boss is more than enough for the four of you. Especially when three of you are banged up like that. Besides, ain't it illegal to use your powers? You yelling. That doesn't matter. The man looked confused. Hoodie. It doesn't? You began to use her quirk, slowly growing in size. The ropes used to tie her up broke first. You. I'm a hero, I'll admit. I haven't always had the best intentions, but it's still my job to protect. She was thankful she'd worn her costume underneath her clothes as they burst. Hoodie shit. He pulled his gun out to shoot her, but it was already too late. She kicked the cell door, launching it and knocking him out. You. Bakugo, as an active hero, I give you permission to use your quirk. The boy smirked. Bakugo. Don't gotta tell me twice. He used his quirk to blast through his own ropes just as you decided to let loose, growing to her full size of 67 feet 8 inches or 2,062 centimeters. You yelling, tighten cliff. Izuku fell to the ground panting. He had been using hit and run tactics, and even with his speed, he was still outmatched. He pulled his knife out of his bicep where Slender had planted it. He stood and raised it once more, preparing to fight head-on. Slender rounded the corner, arms folded behind his back. Slender. Give up. You can't win. Izuku. You should follow your own advice. Instead of responding, Slender pinned Izuku to the wall using his tendrils and plucked the knife from his hand. Slender. I tried to be civil and get along with you, but you chose this. Goodbye, Izuku Midoriya. He thrusted the knife forwards. It was centimeters from Izuku's chest. But then. You yelling, tighten cliff. Yu's gigantic head burst through the floor and continued to rise, making Slender retract his tendrils. The tables had turned.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.